Welcome to the 16th virtual gathering of the Surrey Muse for Friday, July 23rd, 2021. Whoever thought that we would be alive for so long? This particular installment of the Surrey Muse is going to be once again on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish nations of the Semiahmoo, Katsi, Kwikwetlam, Kwantlen, Kakayet, Tswassen, Musqueam, Squamish. This evening's author is Cristy Watson, who is a poet and an award-winning author of 8 novels for middle grade and young adult readers. Her titles include On Cue from 2016 and Benched from 2011 and Living Rough from 2011 as well. As a poet, she received an Editor's Choice Award in CV2's 2-day poem contest in 2013. Cristy also participates in the Poetry Marathon in June, preferring the half marathon where she writes 12 poems to 12 prompts in 12 hours. Remarkable. She volunteers at the Surrey International Writers Conference. At this time, Cristy is the committee chair for Wise Words, and she is looking forward to engaging senior writers in a meaningful dialogue through this new project by the Federation of BC Writers. Please welcome, everybody, Cristy Watson to the Surrey Muse.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to begin by saying thank you to the Surrey Muse Art Society for having me as the feature author this evening. I'm Cristy Watson, and in preparing for tonight's presentation, I thought about my 8 novels and why I wrote them. They are books that hopefully highlight issues our young people are struggling with today and bring a greater awareness to others around these topics, be it mental health, toxic masculinity, incarceration, or homelessness. My books, aimed at young adults and middle grade readers, look at these themes and more. They're what we consider high-low fiction, novels that are accessible to all readers, to those who struggle with reading in general, and to those for whom English is a new language. But they are also for all readers and are read widely by an adult population. I was thinking about the idea of understanding the importance of awareness and how do we build that in people. I think one of the ways we do that is to ensure that our young people have a greater awareness of what's happening around them, what's happening with their friends, and even what's happening within themselves. And to do that, we need to educate and we need to offer youth places they can go to talk and perhaps books that they can read that help them work through some of these issues and come to understand them better. So if we want our children to grow with empathy and concern for others, to take care of their own mental health, and to thrive in what can be a challenging world, we need to give them tools to do this, to see themselves represented in books, and to understand the struggles their peers may be having. To do this, we need books that cover these tough topics. Benched, my first book with Orca Publisher, looks at restorative themes where my main character has to figure out how to make things right when he and his buddies steal a bench from a park, a bench that was dedicated to his teacher's father. In Living Rough, I look at homelessness and the lack of proper resources in Surrey and the Lower Mainland to help young people. With On Cue, I tackle the notion of caring for a sibling with autism, how young people often struggle to balance family responsibilities with the pursuit of their passions. Room 555 surprised me with how its theme has resonated throughout this pandemic. My main character, Rooney, is afraid to visit her Gram in the care home. But with the help of her friend, her love of dance, and a senior she meets while volunteering. She finds her way. Finding courage is a theme that resonates throughout all of my books. My 4 titles with Lorimer are for YA or young adult readers, and the themes are relatable to older teens. Themes of self-harm and mental health are explored through Cutter Boy. And I do have to say that this is not the title that I had for the story, but it is the one that the publisher wanted to go with. And I guess the one main reason is that it's really clear who the target audience is, so it does mean the book will get into the hands of those who maybe need it the most. Dead to Me looks at anger in young males and how it can manifest into feelings of invincibility and perhaps a general lack of trust. Epic Fail is, much like my first book with Lorimer, a very challenging topic, a tough one to talk about and just as tough to write about. It looks at #MeToo, but from the perspective of a male friend to the person who was harmed. My main character in Epic Fail has to build his own roadmap to help his friend and himself, because the 2 males in his family are not the best role models. My final title in the Lorimer Side Streets is my favorite. It kind of rounds out where I started with Benched, because it is also about redemption and restorative practices. Locked Up is the story from which I will read tonight. My main character, Kevin, or Strider as he's known on the inside, is coming close to parole. But part of him feels like he doesn't deserve to be out. He hasn't faced the people he harmed. And as the back of the book says, when he was 15, Kevin took a car for a joyride and got in an accident that seriously injured a pedestrian. In the chapter I'm going to read to you right now, I pay homage to Ed Griffin, whom many of you probably know. He taught creative writing at Matsqui Prison, among other things, during his illustrious career. Chapter 5 is the title of the chapter I'm going to read to you. It's called Changing the Story. When it's time for that creative writing thing, Collins collects me. We head to the common area. Macaroni's already there, and he signals for me to come sit with him. I'm usually the only one who ever talks to him. As I flop into the chair beside him, he's smiling like it's Christmas morning, like he's not stuck in here. Well, aren't you excited? He asks. I can't wait to check out the slam poetry. I brought along some poems in case they want to hear them. He pulls out a ratty old book with ripped corners and flips through it. I hope he isn't planning to read one out loud while we're waiting. I scan the room so Macaroni won't think I'm his audience. The place is more packed than I expected. 4 COs are leaning against the wall. In front of us, a low table's been set up. Behind it, 3 people sit, shuffling papers and talking with each other in whispers. This is the first time the creative writers have been in here. The slim guy, who looks to be about 30, stares at us. He's taking us in. He's wondering what crimes we've committed and how safe he is in here. Lucky that Luke and Dex aren't around. Luke killed a guy, and Dex was running guns and breaking into people's homes. He beat one guy up so badly the dude almost died. You wouldn't expect that from guys who are still years away from their 20s. But it's real. As if the dude at the table can hear my thoughts, his shoulders hunch. He picks up the book in front of him and buries his head in it. Since the writers are here for everyone, girls are in the room too. Other than for a couple of classes, all of us rarely get to do things together in here, and when we are together in a room, we can't sit beside each other. That must be why there are so many guards here today. They want to make sure we don't get too close. Wired was into a girl here last year and they were caught kissing. That's it, just lips pressed to lips, but the whole joint was on lockdown for 2 hours. It sucked. It's times like that when the guards give us attitude and make our lives hell. I was kind of into one of the girls here my first year in, but we could never get together, so I gave up. None of them are like Tanika anyway, or what I figured Tanika would be like if I'd had a chance to get to know her better. She's probably getting ready for graduation. I bet she's even more beautiful now. If my life were different, I would definitely be asking her to go with me to the grad dance. "Let's get started," says a folksy, bluesy voice, bringing me out of my thoughts. "We are thrilled to be here today," says the woman. "We used to visit the local prison and did a lot of work with adult inmates. We hope to get that gig again, but we're lucky to have this opportunity to connect with all of you." Connect with us. It sounds like we're blocks of Lego. I'm beginning to regret my decision to come here. I'm cursing Wired under my breath. The woman speaks again. "We're going to introduce you to the writing professionals who are here today. Then we'll talk about writing in general before moving into smaller groups. As you noticed when you signed up, we'll have fiction, poetry, and songwriting. We hope you're as excited as we are." A few girls nod their heads. Macaroni has a wide grin on his face. I bet I look totally out of place. The woman introduces the panel. The guy who was sitting at the end is the songwriter. His name is Sean. He's still studying us, but smiles when he's introduced. The poet is named Quito, and he's into slam poetry. The woman's name is Kendra, and she writes novels. She pays homage to the founder of the program here in BC, where writers connect with inmates. Even though I just came to get away from Wired, I admit it's cool to have people from the outside caring about us. Sometimes it feels like no one even knows we're here. Kendra stands and smooths her skirt. "I've written 9 novels. One of them is aimed at people in their 20s. That's pretty close in age to many of you. My character Elsie has a tough life. I'm thinking some of you can relate to that. Some of us, all of us know tough being in here." Kendra begins a slow walk back and forth in front of the row of our seats. "The beauty of being a writer," she says, "is that we create the stories. We make up lives for our characters. We get our characters into trouble, and then we give them tools to get out of trouble." "Are you saying you can write us right out of this joint?" one of the girls asks. I hear people snickering. "Sort of. I can't write you out of here, but you can." More people chuckle. They aren't buying it. Kendra continues, "As writers, we determine where our characters go and how they get there. You may not be able to leave here for some time, but you can write your journey. Or maybe you write about what life could be like outside of here. Then you find a way to make that happen. It's really that simple. And over the next 4 sessions, we'll show you how to do it." It's really that simple. Nothing in life is simple. That much I figured out the day I took that car. But it would be nice to believe things could change, that we could have the power to make things change. When we break into small groups, Macaroni goes with the slam poet. I hang with Sean. He plays his guitar and sings one of his original songs and then talks about process. "Sometimes I get the lyrics first," he says, "and sometimes the music comes to me before the words." One of the girls jumps in. "I have no trouble writing lyrics, but I can't always get the notes down. Do you ever have trouble with that? What do you do when that happens?" I think about Strummer and his song. "Yeah," agrees Sean. "Of course it's cool when the two come together, but I have days where I can't knock out the words, no matter how hard I try. Then I decide not to push it, to just let it happen. I have tunes rolling around in my head all the time, but the lyrics take more work for me." That was a good question. Anyone else have questions? I hope he doesn't expect all of us to share. I wouldn't know what to say. I don't have a process since I don't write songs. But Strummer and I jammed and talked about music. I wish he was here right now. He'd be telling us all how he gets his ideas. I wonder if Strummer has access to a guitar in prison. I wonder how he's surviving in there. Hanging with Sean's making me miss Strummer even more. But at least I'm killing an hour without having to deal with Wired. The next part I'm going to read is a portion of chapter 8. It's clear right now that in Juvie, Strider's having some struggles, and although I'm not going to read all of this chapter to you, I did want to highlight it because it really shows one of the themes that I have as part of this book. Chapter 8 is titled Future and Past. I'm shaking as though the air conditioning has come on and it's blasting down my neck. I'm freaked out about this girl named Aisha, and like that time when my dad left the hose running in the backyard, suddenly my memories are spilling out like fast-running water that freezes when it hits cold air. I feel as though I'm behind the wheel of the car again. I can feel the slip of tires on the icy surface. Screams mingle with the crunch of the car as it hits the pole. A red-hot pain sears into my brain. It's like I'm reliving my daily nightmare. Only the images are 10 times stronger. Then I feel a hand on my arm. Someone's trying to talk to me. Kevin, what's up? What just happened? Jackson's holding both my arms. His face is inches from mine. Are you okay? Yeah, I say. I jerk away from him. He drops his arms. I just had a flash. Of the day of the accident? Don't call it that. What, an accident? Yeah, we both know that's not true. My head bows down. I'm having trouble looking at my P.O. How could I possibly sit across from the daughter of the man I hurt? How would I be able to look her in the eyes, especially as they welled up with tears? Not going to happen. Remorse fills me and it hardens like concrete. It's heavy and it weighs me down. Kevin, Jackson breaks into my thoughts again. Taking the car was no accident. You're right. It was reckless and stupid. It was an impulsive move. You didn't think about the consequences. But sliding on the ice happened because I was going too fast for the road conditions. I was trying to ditch the cop car. It probably wasn't even after me. In fact, I'm sure that's what the cop said. He wasn't chasing me and didn't know the car was stolen. But I panicked. Okay, Kevin, but life goes on. You don't know what Aisha is thinking now. Consider meeting with her. All right, I think I will leave my reading off there, even though there is a lot of story left. In this book, I do look at the theme of post-traumatic stress disorder for both the victims and the person who caused harm. This story is very much about moving forward, but doing so in a way that changes the outcome of previous actions. It's a story that shows growth and courage and restoration. If you are interested in the book, I know it's available at select chapters. Indigo's in Surrey. I think the South Surrey one does still have copies left. It's also available to be ordered through Black Bond Books, and of course you can find it online at amazon.ca. I just want to say thank you once again for having me out here tonight as the feature author, and I am very much looking forward to hearing the rest of the readings tonight. Take care.
This evening's poet is Chad Norman, whose poems have appeared for nearly 40 years in literary publications across Canada and in a number of other countries around the world. His most recent books are Simona, a celebration of the SPCA. Wonderful. And Squall, Poems in the Voice of Mary Shelley. Simona from 2021 and Squall from 2020. His poetry has been translated into Albanian, Spanish, Polish, Chinese, Turkish, and Italian. Chad hosts and organizes River Words Poetry and Music Festival each year in Truro, Nova Scotia. Following a tour of Nordic countries in 2016, he began to write a travelogue titled Counting Coins in Denmark and Sweden. Chad is a member of the League of Canadian Poets. Welcome, Chad Norman.
Hi, it's Chad Norman, and it's a pleasure to be reading for the Surrey Muse reading series, and I thank you very much for inviting me. What I'm planning on doing with the reading, I've got the 20 minutes, is I'm going to be reading poems from a manuscript that I just finished called Birder in the Cathedral. And also I'm going to read poems from my book that came out last year with Guernica Editions, Squall Poems in the Voice of Mary Shelley. And I'm also going to read from a new collection that came out earlier this year, and that's from cyberwit.net press out of India. And the book is called Simona, and it's a celebration of the SPCA. So here goes. These are, as I mentioned, two poems from Birder in the Cathedral. All things growing. And this is for my dear friend from Albania, Kuchtim Marina. It is a softer thing what courses through me now. Caws in the air. Flies so happy to be on my pants. What I left for the ones assigned to bring back the food, even if all of it seems to be spring. Somehow ink can capture intimacy. To have this season returned, given because I am out in it. A voice seemingly mine, to be an echo able to bounce into or all around the mates, now alone in the new nests. Three wishes in one. If I were to know happiness, may it be in the middle of a desert. A music entertains each grain of sand at the shoreline. I long to audition to be the next wave on the ocean. Tomorrow, I'll be relieved to know how to finally locate the vocal baby crow. It seems most of the trees also here where it's hidden, momentarily safe on some branch. The new parents have chosen. May it be the first of many meals. So there's two poems from the manuscript I mentioned I've just finished called Birder in the Cathedral. And those are poems taken from the last 12 years where I've been studying 6 crow families here in Truro, Nova Scotia. So the next two poems that I'd like to share are from my book, Squall, Poems in the Voice of Mary Shelley. The first poem is called The Reflection Where Time Floats, 1822. Each poem opens with a scene featuring Mary and a small sealed box. Mary seated in the grass by the sea, a small sealed box at her foot. Heaven, heaven, stop pretending to be the sky. Whisper, the church has lost a voice. Still sinking, the flames out and over. Percy, my nearby husband, speaking up through the divine learning fathoms, unwanted by air, the expulsive minds of England. Look, see a time behind my veiled hair. The godless clouds led his quill to revolt, as if we were tender beside a more silent shore. The soft and pointed grass against our backs, no greener than the tufts surrounding my dress, unable to leave this body since his bright hand waved above the final goodbyes I tried to bar. For a first, my face verifies the color of voids, the sun, his other equal, searching to set on the fated boat, docking after Byron and Leghorn. Squall, define it. Storms are thieves sent to replace thought, like reminders tighten on wrists resting in my lap. What did he want? Not this night parting us in the pool's soft, fading advice. Promises at the St. Pancras churchyard, 1814. Mary standing in the surf, a small sealed box floating at her feet. My other, Percy, certainly respondent and kindly toward our usage of the word love, who declared it like a taught vow, two bound hairs held to the sun. His long fingers on my stiff thigh, gently clenching, fingers the quill had filled with a frantic refutation, skeptical of God's alleged existence. My head hung as his other hand spoke to mine. My thrill fell through my lap to the future. Nothing but that moment gazes back. This collection basically is Mary looking back through the 8 years that she shared with Percy until he drowned in 1822. I'm not sure if she ever went to the beach where his body was cremated, but I take her there in this collection. So now I'd like to read from my newest collection, which is, if I can get it in front of the camera, a Simona, a celebration of the SPCA. And the first poem I'd like to read, perhaps some of you have rescued cats from the SPCA, so this is kind of chronicling after we've rescued Simona here in Truro. And that was 2009, so here it is 2021. So we've had her now for, well, this September will be 11 years. So the first poem I'd like to share is entitled In Love with Hands for Simona. In a moment of long time ago, she was kicked, perhaps, and it was that moment feet of the human male became easy to watch, became the steps of him, the strange master, feeder she would never sit with, allow to be by her pulsing nose. From that mysterious time, she has been in a cage. She has stared at other than boots. She has longed for slow hands, to be the reason she could stop and purr like other cats. Cats she always knew were alive, like the one she once saw in the shiny front of a dishwasher, in the kitchen of a home the humans give since she left a past most cats would have no chance to escape. In love with hands, now watched, along with the feet going by, clad in boots, shoes, and slippers, going by, the feet that as touch comes, in many ways, the pettings, the hands, she seeks a fire somewhere to warm up, to consider what the humans want. And I'll close the reading with this poem here, and it's called The Rapport. She allows this, a language without meows, a human wanting to place a hand on her, her fur, her ability to know the hand is wanting to say something. She causes this, an ease in knowing the language in the placement, how the human hand comes against her, her head, tail, ears, and paws. The language she hears in the ability of the human to be gentle, or to be saying this hand, these fingers want to play. So that's some poems from my new collection, Simona, a celebration of the SPCA. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share all the poems that I have. I appreciate the opportunity to be part of your series, and may it continue to be a success. Bye now.
Hello. Hi. So, Alina, would you like to tell us a bit about yourself and just generally about how you came to know who you are?
So I grew up in a very strict Shia family, and I feel like your identity revolves around the words that are surrounding you, like so in academia, in culture, in television, whatever. And so it was never in our dictionary to have anything apart from being very straight, very heteronormative, and very cisgender. But I have a very clear memory of me being in kindergarten and having my first day at Call Me Please and Mary. You can edit that out. At a Catholic school, and recognizing that I had feelings for a class fellow who, shocker there, was a girl. And it was much later on that I realized, oh no, so like Titanic has this actor who I can't pronounce the name of, but that guy's cute too. So it was confusing because I've only ever seen men and women together. And it was much later on that I gave a word to what it was, and initially it was bisexual, but then I realized that I'm pansexual, and it was much later on than that I realized that I'm not cisgender either. So yay, big shocker. It was a long 15 to 17 year journey, so I'm very proud to be a pansexual, genderqueer human being. I try, I guess.
That's awesome. I mean, I think the other thing to sort of think about in all of this is, I mean, I just want to say, like, give some perspective that all of us are sitting here and thinking about making this documentary sort of part of this queer feminist collective. But what I want to understand, I guess, is that, what brought you to, I understand what your journey to queerness is.
Yeah.
So what's your journey to feminism? And how do the two come together?
Yeah, now that's weird and interesting at the same time. So my journey to feminism was oddly enough very religious. Because I belong to a Shia family, I grew up listening to stories of a very strong-willed and very, say, eloquent woman who would almost gender bend in terms of her notions, say 1500 years ago. So my introduction to gender bending was through Bibi Zainab, who is the granddaughter, if I'm not wrong, of Hazrat Muhammad. So that was my introduction to feminism. But the inclination that I felt towards feminism through my queerness was a lot different, because I was always just considered myself a very strong-willed woman who wanted to make life better for other women. But then I realized that, hello, you're not a woman, so you need to make life better for everyone. And that was because I grew up around a lot of Sufi literature as well. I researched on Bulleh Shah. My senior year thesis was on queer identities within Bulleh Shah's poetry, so I explored his genderqueerness. And I realized that feminist spaces were A, the only ones that were accepting, and B, that feminist spaces, by virtue of what they are, were able to and willing to recognize that there's an inherent beauty in labeling something that's almost unlabelable, if that's even a word. And in that ability and inability to label something, which essentially goes against heteronormative labels, I realized that feminism was like the only way to go.
Awesome. So the other thing, I guess, this is sort of a beautiful journey of queerness and feminism coming together. I guess I have a couple of questions. One is that, if you could talk a bit about the Aurat March, maybe being a part of the Aurat March yourself, and how it became sort of a culmination of the feminist work you were doing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Kudos to all the women who organized Aurat March. I think it was absolutely brilliant. But it was the first time I had ever felt safe walking on a street in broad daylight, knowing very well that there were at least 100, 200 other queer people walking beside me. You could clear as day see pride flags, you could see trans flags, you could see bi flags. There were people holding hands, there were people, well, not making out in public, that's a little not allowed, but like there were men kissing each other on the cheek in public, people holding their hands very tightly. There were some slogans that I will not repeat, but it was beautiful. Like, so Aurat March became for everyone apart from women as well. If you're a cisgender man, this is not for you. But yeah, like Aurat March was like the culmination of 18 years, 19 years of putting hard work into my personal politics, and then kind of manifesting it into a spectacle of sorts, a very, very outward political display of who we are, and massive fuck you to like cisgender people.
That's so great. So the other question sort of that I had is that how did you feel? Like, what were you feeling when you were participating and seeing these flags? And what do you think allowed for, queer inclusion in feminist politics in Lahore?
So I'm not very eloquent in terms of explaining how politics works in terms of that, and I'm not very well versed in it either because I'm very new to the realm. But how do I put it? Feminism and Aurat March was probably the only spaces that were accepting. So I think that was very valid. And as for my feeling, I was crying throughout Aurat March. I was happy, but I was also crying because, this is one day in 365 that you get to, for 4 to 5 hours, like, be this happy. But it was amazing because I knew that if somebody fell down, there's 100 people that are going to pick you up. If there's a woman on a wheelchair, 500 women will be behind that woman and they won't overtake that person. There is a woman who is driving a rickshaw, and that's the way that she earns her livelihood, and she's marching right next to somebody who just got off from her Prado that her parents own or she owns. So I'm not saying it's not riddled with the dynamics of class, but I'm saying that for those 3 to 4 minutes, I saw an absence of those markers that we generally see in society. So that was beautiful, absolutely.
So you feel like you felt those boundaries that sort of keep us all apart and are stuck in our little identity cages.
Absolutely.
Break for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the other question I wanted to ask you, and I think this is an important one, what do you feel as your relationship as a young queer person in Lahore, your relationship with the older queer people? Do you see any?
So we were just having this discussion for people viewing this in Canada. So I'm 22. I have known for a very long time what my identity was. I just never had words for it. But I didn't know that other people existed, and I thought that if they did, they would probably be living in monogamous, cisgender, heteronormative relationships, and they would never talk about it because I never talked about it. But like very recently, I found out there's an entire world in Lahore that is accepting and they are willing to help you. And unfortunately, because of that, I don't necessarily know a lot of queer people that are older than me. I know people that are my age. I know people that are younger than me. But I feel like there's a definite generation gap and a communication gap that comes with that. Perhaps on our part, perhaps on our
the older
generation's part, but I'm not sure.
So would you be interested to be part of queer, like if there was a queer, collective that was meeting, would you be interested to be a part of that?
My initial reaction is maybe because I'm very wary. I have known a lot of people in the queer community whose identities were just they were
outed.
They were outed without their consent, and which is a massive violation of privacy. And I understand what happens to people that defy your norms. So I'm very wary of that. But I think that one day I will have the courage to do so.
Awesome. So is there anything you want to say, to like about being queer, about being feminist, about anything?
Oh, yeah. So I think we're like unicorns. I think all queer people are like unicorns. And I know it's a stereotype. I genuinely do. But they're beautiful. They can poke you and kill you. And they're like strong as fuck. Right? And also they're like magical, right? But like, so the thing is that I've never felt as safe as I do with anyone, not even my family, than I do with queer people, because I know that as sad as it is, shared pain kind of like bonds you on another level. So you know that this person will, it's far from the fact that they might do something to harm you. It's like they will go out of their way to help you in whatever you want. And I've seen that in my generation, a lot of people are already mentoring younger queer people into not giving names to who they are, but exposing them to a world that they themselves were not exposed to, which I feel like is unfair for our older generations because they never got, that exposure. But yeah, like if you're a queer person and if you're brown, because yeah, amazing. And if you're non-heteronormative, if you're not cisgender, y'all are going to heaven because that's my belief. Baki, I don't know. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy with this. Yeah.
We're all also very excited. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hello, Bilal.
Hello.
So let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Tell us about your journey.
My journey with queerness.
Yes.
So basically, I identify as a gay man, and I grew up in Dubai. And the school that I went to, it was a mixed school, so we used to have like Pakistani, Indians, there were locals, and it was like Egyptians and all kind of stuff. So before I discovered my own sexuality, other people assumed that I was gay. They used to call me gay, and purely because I was kind of flamboyant. मेरी आवाज़ पतली सी थी. I used to talk in a feminine voice. My mannerisms were kind of feminine. So I used to be called gay. I used to be told, and all I knew at that point was that I'm gay, and that means that I'm going to hell. So yeah. So I started exploring with my classmate, which was also like a weird exploration. But finally, by the end of my high school and the beginning of my college years, I came to terms with the fact that I was a gay man, and that is about it.
And so tell us about your journey with feminism.
So interestingly enough, I didn't identify as a feminist until I came to university. उससे पहले मुझे इतना interest नहीं था feminism में. I wasn't really an advocate of that sort. So in university I made a friend through theatre, and we were just talking, and I was like, I saw this. It was around Halloween, and I was like, there was this really skimpy outfit of nurse or something. And I was like, oh, I sent that picture to her, and I was like, why don't you wear that for me? And I was really impressed. And she's like, this is not okay. You can't just ask me to do that. And I was like, why not? And she explained it to me, and I was mortified and deeply embarrassed. And I think that's where my feminism started, and then it never stopped. It's like, by hardcore feminism, joined the feminist society, became an ally to women. And through that, I met a lot of queer people, or I was that fortunate enough to make a lot of queer friends, and it kind of helped me with reconciling my queerness and my feminism together. So yeah.
That's awesome. Acha, can you tell us a bit about how your queerness changed because of feminism?
Yes.
And okay, let's start with that.
Alright, so पहले I was always like, hey, yeah, I'm a gay guy, but मैं कभी कुछ ये नहीं करूँगा. Even though I was like gay stuff, I was like, नहीं, मैं आगे जाके नहीं करूँगा, और मैं शादी करूँगा, और शादी के बाद मैं बस छोड़ देना सारा कुछ, और फिर मैं घर बच्चे वो सारे संभालूँगा. And because that was like, Dubai के ना you can't talk about this kind of stuff. आप बात ही करोगे तो आपको जेल में डाल देंगे या आपको रिपोर्ट कर देंगे. और कहते हैं अगर कोई शक भी पड़ जाए कि आप गए हो तो, और आप एक्सपैट पाकिस्तानी हो और आप गए हो तो आप गए काम से. आपको कहते हैं you heard stories about people rotting in prison, people being deported, and मैं कभी पाकिस्तान में रहा नहीं था, और imagine being deported there would have been being separated from my family. और मेरी वजह से मेरी पूरी family डिपोर्ट हुई थी. So I was like always like super closeted. But जब मैं पाकिस्तान आया और जब मैं feminist बन गया, तो कहते हैं आहिस्ता आहिस्ता you started like accepting people and like talking about like different dynamics of like privilege and talking about the different spectrum of gender identities and like वो सारा कुछ और दूसरे लोगों से interaction वगैरह करके I got evolved into my like accepting myself for who I am and उसका पहला and जब when you're gay and in a Pakistani kind of society आपको हमेशा एक गिल्ट रहता है कि like आपने पेरेंट्स के एक्सपेक्टेशन से पूरे नहीं कर सके you're always disappointing them in some way like no matter what you do you're still a gay person or queer person and that's going to like ruin the reputation of your family it's going to make life harder for everybody around you आपकी शादी कैसे होगी जब उनको पता चलेगा उनका भाई gay है so all of these kind of like things kind of piled up but आहिस्ता feminism के साथ you guys start understanding कि like hey, you can't take responsibility for these things, or my sisters are better off with like husbands who are accepting of these kind of factors. It's like I started like being more accepting and more at peace with my identity. So you could say, yeah.
Awesome. So, how did you join Aurat March?
So, Aurat March पिछले साल हुआ था. In 2017, I think we were supposed to go. पूरा कहते हैं इरादा था जाने का, but कोई यूनिवर्सिटी में कुछ event या कोई exam से कुछ हो गया था, we couldn't go. But we heard about it on social media, and we were like really interested. And then this year around, there was like this huge campaign on Aurat March, and a lot of the people, a lot of my friends were involved. Like Yusra Amjad was a close friend of mine at university, and then there were a couple of other friends, and they were like heavily involved. They were like sharing posts, वगैरह. And in university, me and my friends, we were in the feminist society, and हमने काफी ज़्यादा like university के अंदर काफी ज़्यादा like struggle किया for feminism in like as much as we could. Like Muhiba is a good friend of ours from A-levels, और जितना उसने GC के अंदर काम किया like से काम हमने GC में काम किया but it was still a struggle. So when we started fighting for feminism on campus, like we started a safe space program where women could events के ऊपर और usually अगर date night events हैं तो women feel they don't feel secure at these events because they're male dominated या वो कहते हैं gate तक नहीं जा सकते because the campus is pretty dark and shady या कहते हैं उनको अगर harassment का कोई केस है तो रिपोर्ट करने का नहीं पता कि कोई प्रोसीजर यहाँ किसको करें. So we like made avenues for that. We made specialized emails for that. We had a whole system set up for that. We did हमारे पास events सारा कुछ हमने किया. And then we saw that like at a greater level in like all over Pakistan. And उस वक्त डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प कह चल रहा था वुमेन्स मार्च चल रहा था अमेरिका में हमने कहा हम पाकिस्तान में तो औरत मार्च चल रहा था हम ना जाएं ऐसा हो नहीं सकता. And then everyone who was going was queer. Like everyone I knew who was going was queer. ये हो नहीं सकता कि कहते हैं हम queer science ना बनाएं. So I remember मुख्तार में ऑफिस में बैठ के कहते हैं साइंस बना रहे हैं ज़मीन पे and मैंने कहते हैं और gay science है and we had like the rainbow flag on it बराबर खूब लिखे हुए हैं and one of my other friends made a cat outline. She's a good artist and उसने उसमें सारे rainbow colors डाल दिए or like then but we were still really scared to actually hold those signs. So we were like अच्छा हम fold करते हैं फिर पास करते हैं और जब जाएंगे ना फिर किसी कहीं हम ऐसे दिखा देंगे फिर हम भाग जाएंगे. So but then we got there and we see this guy walking with pink glasses and holding this sign that says homo hetero bye bye. And I was we were like, he took the signs out and started like flashing it everywhere. When news cameras जा रहे हैं हम like उसके सामने like दिखा रहे हैं and we were taking pictures and we were like, yeah, then can we take a picture with you? And like, yeah, you can take a picture of us. And then like वो कर रहे हैं people had glitter on and it was like amazing. We were really glad.
Tonight's open mic opener is Carla Stein, who is a poet and a painter who has released 2 poetry chapbooks titled Sideways Glances of an Everyday Sailor and Shrieking from the Shore. She is the current artistic director of Wordstrom Society of the Arts and a co-founder of 15 Minutes of Infamy, a wordcraft performance venue based in Nanaimo, Canada. Her images and poetry have been published in anthologies and literary magazines including Sustenance, Lemon Spouting, Pocket Lint, Stone Coast Review, Please Hear What I'm Not Saying, Sad Girl Review, Ascent Aspirations, Friday's Poems, Island Arts Magazine, Polar Starlight, an anthology of Nanaimo poetry, and others. Please welcome Carla Stein.
Hello, friends of Surrey Muse.
Tonight's open mic opener is Carla Stein, who is a poet and a painter who has released 2 poetry chapbooks titled Sideways Glances of an Everyday Sailor and Shrieking from the Shore. She is the current artistic director of Wordstrom Society of
Good evening. I'm grateful to be joining you tonight from traditional Nanaimo First Nations territory here on Vancouver Island. And I want to thank Surrey Muse for inviting me to introduce tonight's open mic. I'll be sampling from a few poems included in one of my chapbooks, as well as from a new serial poem that's in progress. My first offerings are included in my chapbook, Shrieking from the Shore, and that's one of my pieces of artwork as well. It's available through Window Seat Books here in Nanaimo, and if you're not in the Nanaimo area, you can contact me directly and I'll be happy to get a copy to you. The first poem that I'm going to share with you is called Lady Liberty Waves at the Rio Grande. On a bus to somewhere, we invented stories about how the cords around our necks came to match so well. We traded in the tunnels to dance our teeth around some worms our sisters dug when they stopped weeping through a dreamer's landscape. No longer in dark pastures, now aware of sunlight and meadows, we ushered in pledges, picked up sinews, twisted reveries on cue. You cannot hear the mice that scratch my insides, and I cannot see the spider webs that billow dust-like through your forehead. Watched by a long-dead audience, we roll through paper walls as sun and moon pour wallet picture lives into yellow metal seats. Offer sustenance, perhaps somewhere. And the next poem is entitled Name Calling for Sherry D. Wilson. My name is an unsingable decibel. My other names are witch, mother, siren, slut, sandstorm, seafoam, serpent, silence. My sorrow is life, the third rail leap, the lightning sundered branch, the child grown up too soon. She said, come more often, and I forgot on purpose because shredded poems on her pathway stabbed my shoeless toes, made tears well up like wounds from another's sometime life. Until she came with her witch's broom, whisked them away so I could spell words, dispel my fear, love the page, could rip the sounds from my dreams to crush the name of my jazz mother and Charleston my hips into the mouth of a wolf, roll on her tongue, drool over territories of dead reindeer and cosmic sheep, sleep in moss corners, drip dewdrops from my wolf teeth marrow. Tell her, I will always hear you, even if I never come. These next poems are part of a series that explores interconnections between present and historical oppression and attitudes toward women and the planet's more than human species. The first one is entitled The Long Line, and it was written in celebration of 2021's International Women's Day. Uncounted footsteps, Ima, Anyak, Tias, Zusters, Matki, Oba, nieces, mothers, daughters, this procession of placentas, endless. Cords cut, tied into generations, these epics are unwritten. This consanguinity, grandmothers, aunts, sisters of blood, and sisters of choice, their sagas unrecorded, narratives embedded in dog-eared photographs, tarnished bracelets, battered bangles, the broken rosary, grease-stained recipe. Cherished, lost. Do villanelles praise these plats du jour? Unnamed, these Aniki, Zestri, Binti, these Hi-Ha, Oma, Iya, Tuahini, embodiments of scraped knuckles, chapped skin, the torn meniscus, the lumbar ache, shines windows, polishes tables, hands you coffee, flips omelets, boils broth, loads Ben and Jerry flavors on your Chevy Suburban's chassis. No allusions reference these tannies. Her hands in the fields, sobrinas, madres, bahanki, lettuce, zucchini, tomatoes picked, satva tochter, her eyes on the asphalt, semis deliver. She calculates the bushels, the trips to pay a mortgage, purchase a child's prescription, ballads buried in unpublished editions, guide, fire trucks, ambulances, Ima arms flash signals, direct, divert. Her smiles peer from rain-drenched ponchos, hide her lack of sleep, hide her worries over night-crying babes, car repairs and hydro bills, winter boots, the non-existent walk-up lease. Anaphoras of dread compose these stanzas. Invisible this gendered poverty, this female 56%, these 30% less who carry on with caring, run errands, staff the kitchens, clean the toilets, count the change, brave bureaucracies, hold a dying hand, try not to drown in their own depression. Whose voices will recite these fables? Livelihood, 9 to 5s disappear, bruises multiply, stain psyches while trauma's breakfast on isolated ribs. These influencers bedecked in blue, black, purple see their followers increase, their selfies unposted, seen only in police reports. These laments tranquilized, filed. Essential, zestry, zuster, tias, mother, sister, aunts, required, needed, meaningful, of no absence, no notice, no living wage. Paper hearts, praise, do not buy dinner or dignity, do not secure safety, childcare, relieve debt or dental bills, pay loans, fill empty tanks, preserve sanity. The hearts in the window are fading. The cheering has gone quiet. Still, the lines lengthen. The work goes on. And this last poem grew out of concern about what's happening to our old-growth forests here in British Columbia and across Canada. It's entitled Matricide. This ancestral line mouths no words. This clan, these foremothers, abuelas del bosque, truth and tree the same root, solid, steadfast, grandams of the forest, 1,000 summer canopies open to light, grow petticoats of fern, berry, moss, lichen, Cambion pumps acumen, radicals morph, connect underland villages. Bark scorches, branches snow snap, crowns wind twist. Yet these soaring malkas, each a mistress of collective memories, squirrel and fire their handmaids, mark their kin, succor saplings, hark to distress, heal disease, trade wealth with sprouting strangers. An ordered society, genius in the seed, this congregation of Cran, whose consorts, sons, daughters release carbonized code, advertise on breeze and mist to bees, hummingbirds, in pollen, sap, bark, acorn, pine cone, terpenoids dissuade. Moose, elk, stags, choose not to dine. Here on mycelium rivers, dispatches travel, arboreal sovereigns tithe snowberry, salal, microbial tenants cluster, barge enzyme communiques, rough cast contessas muster fields of mutuality, nourish magisterial scions, cradle moss between rootlet and trunk, nestle fawns in their greenway laps, set places for black bear fish suppers. Heartwood, pith, phloem, xylem, sapwood, growth rings, hemmed by harvesters, sovereigns subjugated, timbered, limbed, felled, skidded, bucked, trucked, exported, exiled, sagacity ripped to sawdust, remnants rotting, chemicals chastise, softwoods, shrubs, colonize land in a single shade. Thank you for listening, and good night.
Hello, friends of Surrey Muse. I'm R.C. Weslowski. It's been so long since we've connected in person, but thank you for reaching out and inviting me to promote my new book called My Soft Response to the Wars. Here's a look at it. That is me on the cover, around 12 years old. My grade 7 school photo, I think. My Soft Response to the Wars on Right Bloody North Publishing, which is exciting. It's a Canadian imprint of the Right Bloody Publishing outlet from the United States. And so my book is there. Lots of other folks are there. Titilope Sanuga, Ian Kediku, Brandon Wint, and Lucia Mish. So mine is the 5th book released on this publishing house. And I'm just going to share one poem from it. Well, actually, I'll share the title piece for you. It's called My Soft Response to the Wars. I will embrace the sausage makers. I will massage a pommel horse. I will prove to elevators that they're lonely and convince them to quit giving birth. I will go to the zoo with a grenade in my mouth and encourage one lone zebra to commit suicide in honor of the Serengeti. I will lead parades of beauty through the sewers of despair. I will serenade all the oceans until I drive the seahorses mad with songs so lustful 100 million lunatic horses of the sea will burst forth from the depths of madness, carry us on their backs to a place where we can all weep for the sun. I will gunder thrust Pabadoo, Zazatrope the Thundelbruskets. I will relinquish Utney. Pronto moda benvenuti, pronto moda benvenuti. I will shake the suffer tree until all the struggle monkeys fall to the ground, impaling themselves on their own divinity. The gutter is a cathedral for too many. I will devour the rust that coats the eyes of man, chew the cud of history, regurgitate our pasts and all of our past lives until I vomit stars upon a carpet of infinite sorrow where an armless nun cradles the abortions of joy. There, all of our sins will be forgiven for every instant when we lacked and turned away. And I will love you, the dying, in this my soft response to the wars. For we all are dying all the time. Every back-waxing barber, every bingo hall dauber, every bourbon and beer-blind blood-soaked buffalo hunter, to be reborn again and again and again along a tightrope that ever stretches across a nameless chasm where feet too callous to feel our lives bleeds away into nothingness. And when you slip, I will catch you with these words, whether heard or read or never known at all. For it's too hard of a journey to go it alone, and loneliness can make demons of us all. So search them out, the savage flower pots of darkness, the dizzied lints that collect themselves inside the bellies of this earth, the insatiable tears of dogs. Know their pain. For it seems everything in their power will be done throughout our lifetimes to keep us from loving one another. That's my soft response to the wars. From Right Bloody North Publishing, rightbloodynorth.ca to order the book. Thank you so much. Be well, stay safe, and hopefully we'll chat in person soon. I'm R.C. Weslowski.